Hey freight agents, are you tired of being held back? Since 2012, Tallgrass Freight has built a proven track record at the top-tier independent freight agent network, and we're just getting started. Here, our agents get the best of both worlds, the freedom to be true entrepreneurs paired with the full support of a company that has their back, uncapped commission, zero territory restrictions, and a world-class back office. At Tallgrass, you're never just a number. You're part of a network that values independence, celebrates success, and invests in your future. Whether you're a solo agent or leading a team, Tallgrass gives you the tools, transparency, and flexibility to grow your business on your terms. No corporate red tape, no micromanaging, just freedom, support, and unlimited potential. To join our team, visit tallgrassfreight.com/podcast. That's tallgrassfreight.com/podcast. Welcome to the Recruiting Stories Podcast, where we celebrate recruiting by exploring the stories of leaders and top performers by digging into their stories and understanding how recruiting has impacted their journey and their success. All right, guys, welcome to the next edition of the Recruiting Stories Podcast. I'm super excited because we have Sandy Cahill of Cahill Consulting with us today. How are you, Sandy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Adrian?
I am good. Thanks for being on. Sandy and I actually met at the Bulk Freight Conference recently. I was thrilled to meet her. She is an industry veteran. She was with DAT and led marketing there for 15 plus years. And so got to see a lot of changes over the years. So I'm excited to dig into her story and learn a little bit more about marketing as well, if that's okay with you.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me and inviting me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me ask you this, maybe just to start. Tell me first and foremost, what does Cahill Consulting do? And that can kind of give us a good kind of runway to get going.
Yeah, it's just a kind of customized shop, and the shop is basically me helping out folks with any kind of marketing needs, only in the freight industry. I don't do work for anybody else. I love the business, and that's where I want to do my work. Most of the work that I do is in messaging and content development, thought leadership, that kind of thing. As we were talking just a second ago, Adrian, I think clarity is so needed in the marketplace today. We have a lot of companies selling a lot of similar products and services. So how do you stand out in the marketplace, I think, is the hardest question to answer. So I help folks do that.
That's good. I want to like dive more into that here in a little while because, man, I was just part of obviously what I do on the recruiting side is, we work with different transportation companies, and all of them do different things, but very similar, but, you might be a freight brokerage, but you focus primarily on, flatbed, domestic freight, whereas another one focuses on cross-border dry van freight. But if you read their websites, they'd look exactly the same.
Exactly. I've written many blog posts on that very topic.
Yeah.
It's definitely a problem.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, yeah, look forward to some more thoughts on that in a minute. Tell me how you got into transportation. I'm always curious, part of recruiting stories is like, how did we all get here, right? Like, how did you land in transportation? Like, is that something you plan to do?
I don't think anyone plans to go into this business. Everybody else, I just kind of fell into it. I grew up in New York, so I was always in what they used to call the glamour industries and radio. I worked for Arista Records and CBS Records, and I did all kinds of cool jobs as a young woman in New York City. And then when I moved to Portland, there were a couple of ad agencies, so I worked for them here in town, but not a lot of marketing jobs at the time. So I opened up my own little company, and I did Cahill Consulting 1.0 basically, and it was for small and medium-sized businesses. And I worked on that until and a couple of other jobs along the way until 2008, basically, when the first Great Recession happened, and my business just kind of dried up. So I got recruited to DAT Freight and Analytics. It was called DAT services at the time.
Yeah.
A guy that I used to work with at T-Mobile,
Okay.
I did marketing for T-Mobile previously, was recruiting, and he said, "Hey, would you be interested in working for DAT services?" And I said, "I don't know anything about them, but happy to learn." And that's how I ended up in the industry. And who knew that I would really enjoy trucking and transportation?
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So someone you had worked with, did he move to recruiting or was he recruiting for his team? Tell me about like that connection there.
He moved to recruiting. So I worked with him at T-Mobile. I was in marketing. He was in sales.
Yeah.
And that was in probably the early 2000s. And I don't know at what point he started that recruitment company, but he broke out onto his own and started doing that. And if you remember during the dot-com bubble and
Yeah.
post, recruitment was very hot. So
Yep.
he did that then and after that. But this was 2008 already, and he was still doing it. So
Yeah.
I haven't been in touch with him recently, but he's a real good guy.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And also to me, that just makes me think of just like, there's always like the phrase like "don't burn bridges," but like more than that, like, um, you know, to me, the idea is always like you don't have to like be best friends with everybody, but if you make a strong impression, people are going to remember you, and it's that one impression that you do make might be enough for someone to be like, "Oh yeah, I remember so and so from 10 years ago."
Absolutely. Absolutely. And burning bridges, it's a funny you should mention that because it's a good thing when I left DAT, I left on a really good note
Yeah.
because they have just moved into the building that I'm in right now.
That's hilarious.
So I was just seeing all the guys in the hallway and saying to myself, well, it's a good thing
Yeah.
I'm still friends with them.
Right. Could be awkward. Yeah. That's awesome. That's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, tell me then about DAT, right? Because you said, you jumped on there, were there for 15 years or more, and you had, really a front row seat to a lot of cool things in the industry, and then just change in technology and how the transportation industry functions over that time. So walk me through maybe, and you were telling me offline too, like you went from a small department to like a massive department. So tell me about some of that growth.
So when I joined in 2008, there were 5 people in the marketing department, and I was brought on. My original job was as a program manager. So the guy that was running the marketing department at the time came from Intel, and they ran their marketing department by programs. So he brought me on to run a couple of and they had a lot of different products back then that were very separately run. And they had their own websites and their own names. So they had they had Carrier Watch and a separate, website, and they had a satellite tracking company that competed with Skybits. And that's what they hired me for. So I came on and did that work. But over the course of the years, when I left the company in 2023, there were 52 people in the marketing department versus the 5 that I started at. So not only did I see an explosion of the company itself, but you're right about the industry, because when I first joined, it was still very much a family feeling. It wasn't a family-run business anymore. The Jubitz family started DAT back in the 70s, I think. But they had sold it to Roper. So it was already a publicly held company, but it still had a very family feeling. It was independent of Roper. They didn't, micromanage us. They let us run the way we always had successfully. We were a very good piece of their portfolio, Roper's portfolio. I think we were the number 1 profitable company in all of their portfolio. So you leave that company alone when that happens.
Right.
But the interesting part happened in, I would say, around 2012 or 13, when venture capital started looking at our industry, when Convoy, early, maybe 2016, Convoy, Uber Freight, all those kind of big companies kind of woke up DAT, because we were sitting on our heels, just kind of collecting the money. We were the only ones kind of with truck stop in the business that had a significant load board. And we just did what we did, and we collected the money. Well, when they entered the marketplace, we were like, whoa, we better like take a look, and because we're going to get our lunch eaten here. And
Yeah.
the executives very much responded to that.
Yeah.
They took a look at, mission statements and SWOTs and the whole deal to figure out what do we need to do to respond to this new marketplace. And it took them a while, to regroup. But I think they did a really good job of putting money back into the business and research and development and product development, into this marketing and sales portion of it
Mm,
as well. And that's when we brought in a great CMO who came also from T-Mobile. Coincidentally, I didn't know him
mm,
previously,
mm,
but Jeff Hopper is his name. He completely changed the marketing face of that company and built it into a marketing driven organization for the first time. Previously, it
mm.
had been an engineering driven organization. So I give him lots of credit for that. And that's when I started, running different departments just wherever it was needed. For a while, I ran the creative department. I ran the performance department. And then at the end, I was operations director. So
Mm.
it kind of takes care of everything. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
a lot of fun and great, smart people and interesting industry. So how could you leave it? I just fell in
Yeah.
love with it, and I'm here to stay.
That's awesome. Talk to me about that. That's interesting. Like, it's an interesting career journey, and I'm curious too, just about some of like the depths behind that too, because like you said, you guys were kind of the big dog early on going in there,
Yes.
and then not that they're not still a big dog, but it was suddenly there was a threat, right?
Yes.
And so that certainly changed how you marketed. So I'm curious, like, what that looked like. Was it, hey, we're kind of the big broad messaging, come here to to cover loads, or whatever it is, or and then what did it change to once there was a threat? Like, how did those meetings look, I guess? I'm just curious.
It was definitely an evolution.
Mm.
We started by just really trying to consolidate all the brands. We did market research and found out what we already knew, but got confirmed that there was confusion in the marketplace. At the
Yeah.
time, we had a lot of different brands with a lot of different product and company names, and people didn't know that we were the same company and the same network. So that's when we went back to DAT.com. Previously, we had been 360 Transcore and all of these other iterations that created confusion in the marketplace.
Yeah. Right.
Luckily, we still own DAT.com, the three-letter URL. I don't think we would have been able to get that, but they
Yeah.
never let it go. So we just reactivated that, built a new website, and started basically from scratch,
Mm.
building a new brand with the messaging being the largest load board, the largest network in the industry. That was the one message that we
Yeah.
put across starting in about 2017 or so. And that's the one that really resonated behind that DAT brand. And we hammered it and hammered it, and it really worked. And I think that's when we started to kind of take over the industry, and the competition just kind of quieted down from our perspective anyway.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like the emotion behind that marketing is trust. Like, hey, we're the biggest, load board on the market. We've been around, we're still here. Feels like that's like, hey, you can trust us. Am I wrong
Yeah.
with that? Or
It's that's the intention. It's a
Mhm.
very tough marketplace, especially now with fraud being
Yeah,
rampant in the market, and the load boards are part of the problem behind fraud. There's just a lot of ways that people can get onto a load board. They've made it a lot harder now to try to stop some of that, but I think
hmm,
that that's eroded any trust that might have been there to begin with a bit. But both Truck Stop and DAT are working hard to replace some of or to create compliance within
yeah.
the networks that can replace that trust level and bring it back again. And I think they're doing a really good job.
Yeah, well, since you brought it up, let's talk about that for a minute because, obviously, I feel like as you were probably leaving, it was probably like a crescendo of like, oh man, this is a big deal, all of the fraud,
Yes.
right? What was the I guess what was the maybe as you were leaving, what were those conversations like there? Like, hey, how do we message? Obviously, maybe not all the problems are solved yet, but like, how do we message in a time, just from a marketing, standpoint, when we do feel like there is issues of fraud in the marketplace? What does that look like? I'm curious.
It always was an issue at DAT. We were always concerned about fraud and walking a fine line between getting as many carriers and brokers on the load board as possible without bringing bad players on. So
Mhm.
we had a compliance department, always had a compliance department run by Laura Mendoza and her team over there. And they did a really good job of just tracking down when they got a report on bad players. They had a whole system in place. And I know Truck Stop did too with RMIS.
Yeah.
And I remember at DAT, we hired a whole bunch of people in the back area there to have just them dialing the secretaries of state and all of the finding the background of all these people to make sure that they were legit. So it was always a problem, but you're right. As I was leaving, it became much, much worse. And I think the industry was in turmoil on how to respond to it. And so was DAT. And they had big conversations internally to figure out what the plan was. And they definitely came up with a compliance program, and they marketed it a lot more diligently than they had before, as did Truck Stop. But I think their relationships with partners who help them, like Highway and others who help with compliance, has done a lot in the most recent years. Although I haven't been, privy to all of it.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. No, that's interesting. Just because that evolution of of that organization and how it moved forward, and then one of the things that they've dealt with now is some of that fraud and fraud prevention and things like that. In kind of modern times, the messaging and marketing obviously has to change as people are dealing with certain problems. Much like a freight broker, you know. Um, they have to speak to the problems that are in the marketplace for their shippers.
Right.
It's the same type of deal there as well. So talk to me then, I guess, about when it comes to messaging and marketing. You transitioned to Cahill Consulting here, and you're helping different organizations, right?
Yeah.
What what has that been like? But then two, I guess, what are some things that transportation organizations can do on a high level, just to create clarity for their clients? I'm curious about that. To jump back to that.
Yep. So it's been a great 3 years. I mean, I set out to I'm to be frank, I'm at the part of my career where I'm not trying to build an empire. I'm not,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to become Coca-Cola for freight.
Mhm.
I just love to work in this business, and I want to work with people that I like to work with, doing the kind of work that I enjoy. And that's how I set the company up to be.
Mm.
And so I thought at first that I would be doing work for brokers, because that's what I know the best and where I know
Yeah.
the most people. And as the brokers have not had the most successful last 3 years. It's just been very tough for them,
Sure.
and they're really just trying to regroup internally, and they're not spending money that they don't need to spend, that they think they don't need to spend anyway. And so finding brokers to do marketing was very difficult. However, the freight tech boom has taken the place of the brokers in my business anyway. And
Sure.
and not only the new ones, but the TMS companies. There's so many TMS companies out there that have the same problem that you mentioned about the brokers. They kind of all offer the same things. They might have some specific modules that cater to different parts of the market, but they all of their websites say the same thing, and they
Yeah.
don't really do a good job of differentiation. So I do a little bit of work for a TMS company. I've done small projects for brokers and for startup tech companies.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm doing a lot of work for IANA, the Intermodal Association.
Okay, cool.
So, and that's super interesting for me, because I know motor carrier, I know ground, I know brokers, I know, carriers. I don't really know rail. So I've
Yeah,
just
sure.
been in the learning mode, which I love to be in,
Right.
learning all the intricacies of how that works and what's important. And I'm doing a thought leadership program for them. And when I do that, I really have to learn the
Yeah,
industry
yeah,
in
yeah.
order to write about it, right? So I've just been enjoying that tremendously. It's been
That's
great.
amazing. Super
Yeah.
cool. Well, so tell me then, like, are there some like ABCs that a freight tech company, a TMS company, a freight broker should consider when it comes to their messaging? Because I'll kind of go back to that. Like, I, sometimes I'm working with a client and they might be fantastic people. They might even have a thriving business, but I get on their website and I'm like, one, this website looks like it's from 1995. Two, two, they're America's best transportation provider, which every website of freight brokers and freight forwarders in the world says that same thing. Like, we're complete supply chain solutions. We have total visibility. And I'm like, everybody says these things. So how do they differentiate themselves? What are some basics, maybe, if you're willing to share?
Absolutely. And they don't realize how detrimental that is to their business. They think most small businesses want to be everything to everybody, right?
Right.
You don't want to turn down one opportunity, no matter how outside of your target area that may be. So you want to appeal to everybody, and that's what they're doing, is they're trying to appeal to everybody. Well, in the long run, and actually in the short run, that works against you because you end up looking like everybody else. So you have to figure out what is your strength. What are your strengths?
Yeah.
What's the one differentiation that you have? And it can't be the best customer service, because that's what everybody says, right? If you specialize in LTL, and maybe you do all the other services as well, but if that's like 30 or 40 or 50% of your business, hang your hat on a niche,
Yes. Right.
and then you can own that niche and expand from there. But if you try to expand to begin with, you don't get any messaging across. So that's number one, is find one message that you can hang your hat on, right? And then I think after that, it's just, leadership, thought leadership works for anybody. You can create content. And this is also a really great thing that I learned at DAT. When we decided to go to the DAT.com and the DAT brand completely and put all of our eggs behind that brand, we changed from being a sales organization that does outbound calling to one that is inundated with leads, incoming leads. And we did that with content development, purely with content development under one brand. So if you can get all of your messaging in a row, and clarity is super important on messaging, and then put your content out there, and not just LinkedIn. I've written many blog posts on that too. You can't just market on LinkedIn. You have to expand it to other areas. Get out there and put some content out there that shows that you know your stuff, not sales content, but industry content, leadership content. And maybe it's stats that you have that nobody else has, or maybe it's a viewpoint that you have, but put something out there that's interesting and different, and use that as a thought leadership program that will then create people coming to you rather than you having to do outbound sales. And it worked. It took a long time at DAT, probably 4 years for that to 100% turn around, but it worked really well.
That's really good. It
Yeah.
makes me think of, just the whole idea of, even personal branding.
Yes.
Because, because to your point, like, you guys had an initiative that, you had content that created some inbound leads. But I think about that for a lot of times for people, and many, obviously people in sales are more apt to do that than people maybe who aren't. But I encourage people oftentimes to, like, hey man, start creating content. And that doesn't mean that you have to have, like, the best videos and the best, pictures. But, like, to your point, like, hey, just start talking about what that's interesting to you, And I think you'll be surprised at how much people will engage with. So what are your thoughts around personal branding for just an individual as they go about their career as we're here in 2026? What are your thoughts there?
You know, I've seen at DAT and at other companies where the company builds a personal brand for someone and then they leave. I mean, you saw that at Freight Waves, right?
Yeah.
It happened at DAT several times where we said, this is the face of fill in the blank. And we put a lot of marketing behind them, and then they can go off and they've got a brand that they can build on. And you can do that for yourself as well. You don't need DAT behind you to do that.
Yeah.
And it's really, learn how to use AI in a way that it makes you better at your job. That's what I've done. And that's what I think a lot of people are doing. You can't just use AI in its raw form, but learn how to use it so that you can create content that expresses your point of view quicker than you've ever done it before, and in a more professional way, because it's a great editor, if nothing else, right? So there's tools out there that you can use to create a brand that are super easy to use. And once you create that brand, you can take it anywhere.
I love that. I think that's good. I think sometimes people misunderstand like a brand because they're like, oh, they just overthink it, right? Like they're like, oh man, I've got to have all of these special things and I've got to, and really it kind of goes back to what you said earlier is like, I don't remember exactly what you said, but like have a tagline that matters. What did you say there earlier?
Find a niche, find the one thing that you do really well and conquer that.
Yeah. And if you can just say like, hey, this is what I stand for, so to speak. This is my niche. This is who I am. And you just have to talk about that thing and go back to that thing and create content. It's maybe that's a video sometimes. But maybe that's just I was just thinking about this because I read an article today, or I had a conversation with a friend, and here's a 30-second tip that I just wanted to like type out real fast.
Yep.
And I know for me, I've been creating a personal brand for almost 10 years now, kind of by accident to start. But for me, like my most viral or my most productive content is most of the time just like things that snapped into my head and I'm like, that would be helpful. I'm going to share that.
Yeah. And you know what I've found, because LinkedIn, it's a very valuable resource, and I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying, make sure you use it along with other vehicles. But I've been trying to crack that nut. Like, what is it on LinkedIn that really gains traction? Yeah. And I think that I've found most recently that it's personal authenticity. It's if you're just writing, a post about, some generic freight marketing idea, we'll get 10 likes or something. But if you write something personal on there, and I don't like to really share my personal life and business. I'm a semi-private person, right? But I just put something up over the weekend about my anniversary, because it was my anniversary, and that was like the most response that I've gotten on any LinkedIn thing in 5 years.
Yep.
So that kind of taught me something. Not that I'm going to actually, go out there and put my personal life on it, but the people that do, you can see the kind of engagement they get, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I know I'm similar. Like when I share family things, shared a picture of my daughter today, and people engage with that stuff because I think it is so much more relatable. And to that point, like people want to do business with people. People don't want to do business with
that's right
AI robots. And I'm probably a little bit hard on folks. I'm like, hey, don't use AI generated pictures for your those types of things. For me, it's not that I don't think that they're helpful, or maybe there's a place for them sometimes, but to me it goes back to the idea of people want to do business with people, and like I want to have a conversation with you face to face at a conference, on a call, and if I can relate to you, man, I'm way more likely to
Right.
work with you, to spend money with you, to send referrals to you than I am if I'm just like, all right, I don't even know if you're a real person. Your
Right.
posts don't feel real. How do we connect if I can't relate in any way? If that
Yeah,
makes sense.
it's so true. And especially in this industry, I think more so than other industries that I've been in. It's a much more relationship built
Yeah,
industry,
yeah,
and it's hard to break into. It's like in high school with the cliques, right? If you
yeah,
come
right,
to a
right.
new high school, it's hard to like get into the cliques that are out there. It's kind of a similar thing, only it's not so clicky. It's just that
Yeah,
people have known each other for a long time
yeah,
and they like to work with the people they like to work with. And I do too. So
yeah,
I
right.
get it. I
Yeah.
completely get it.
Well,
It's
and it goes back to the idea of that, people do business know, like, and trust. And
exactly
I can't trust you if I don't know you.
right.
And I can't like you if I don't know you and feel like I can actually like speak with a real. I'm not going to give you my trust if I don't think you're real.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
and
think
I mean,
that's
talk
why,
about the freight fraud thing too. Like, if
yeah,
I know you're a real person, I'll give you my freight.
right. But I think that's why events are so popular now
Yeah,
since pandemic, right?
yeah,
Is because it's people are not working, very few are working in offices now. So the only time you can actually see anybody is at the events sometimes.
right.
So like I heard there were like 7,000 people at Manifest last week, which is
Crazy.
insane. I've never heard about a truck show or a
Yeah,
transportation show that has been that big in
yeah,
years. So
yeah,
I think that's people are just clamoring for that kind of relationship.
yeah. And it's just such a convenient place to say, hey, you know what? Let's just meet. I don't have to travel to
Yeah.
40 different states when I can just go to one and say hello and get on the same page with
Yeah. And
somebody.
even traveling, where you gonna, a lot of people are working from home, so where can you even travel to, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly right. No
it's a
doubt.
unique dynamic.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I've enjoyed the conversation, Sandy. There's a couple things I like to ask typically as I'm like wrapping up, because I know for all of us we've had like different journeys. So for you, first question, kind of thinking through this is, if you had to give advice to your 20-year-old self, where you are now, what advice would you give yourself today?
I would just say, uh, and I did do this when I was 20, follow your instincts, but
Hmm.
don't question them. Just follow them a little more strongly than I did.
Yeah.
I did follow instincts, but I was very easily influenced by
Hmm.
people that uh, I I respected and believed in, but didn't always agree with what I thought I wanted. And so I would be, led down a path that I probably could have avoided. So if I
Yep.
just had followed my instincts, I might have gotten a little different path and ended up where I wanted to be sooner.
Yeah. Makes sense. I know I was just super worried about what other people thought.
Yeah.
And if you would have asked me that when I was 20 something, I would have been like, no, I don't. But
Right?
looking back, I'm like, 100% my decisions were made off of like other people's opinions.
Totally. And when you're 20, that's everybody's like that, right? You just don't have the confidence
Yep.
that you do as you grow older.
Yep. That's good. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
What about books? Is there any books that you've read that you would share that have been impactful on your journey?
Yeah. You reminded me actually
Hmm.
of a book that I read not too long ago. Well, probably like 5 years ago, called Crossing the Chasm,
Okay.
which is a famous B2B tech book, marketing,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
which I think might have been one of the first books to coin like early adopter language, versus the different steps along the way and how companies can target market to early adopters and then majority adopters and so on down the line. And that's that chasm that you need to cross to explain to people who will continue to use your products and services rather than just be an early adopter because it's cool, right?
Yeah.
So that was a really good book. And I like to read books about how brands, became who they are. They're just
Yeah.
super interesting and great stories and case studies to read about. But I also just read historical novels too.
That's cool.
I like history.
I'm a history nerd too.
Oh, are you?
Oh man, anything like American history, American West, like I could read
Yeah.
stuff like that all the time.
Yeah, I love that too. Plus, I'm a World War II fanatic, so
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Any
yeah.
World War II books or no?
No, but I'm going on a tour, a World
Ooh,
War II tour to Germany in June.
that's
So that's
exciting.
going to be awesome.
We'll have to report back on that.
I will. I will.
That's good.
Yeah.
Um, no, that's super. Your brand thing made me think of. I remember one time at a company that I was not with for very long, but this. I remember my manager at the time was like asking me what my favorite brand was, and I think I said Coca-Cola. Because I to me I was like it's like a cool classic brand and it's been around
Yeah.
forever and it's changed, but like you recognize it
Yeah.
anywhere in the world that you go.
Absolutely.
And it seems very iconic to me. So I was like, for that reason, I'm like, it's just such a cool and classic brand.
Yeah.
And that was not the answer that they wanted. They were wanting like Apple or
Something very hip. Yeah.
yeah, they were
But you're right about Coke because I think that logo, they've tweaked it, but they haven't changed it in like 100 years, kind of thing.
right,
That
right.
scripty logo.
Yeah.
And very few companies can claim that, right?
Mhm.
So I think you're absolutely right.
Do you have a favorite? That's the question. Favorite brand, and do you have a favorite brand in transportation?
Well, I can answer the transportation one first because that's one came to mind immediately. I've always looked at C.H. Robinson's branding as being very
Yeah,
impressive.
yeah,
And when I was at DAT, we partnered with them on a lot of projects actually. And I used to look whenever I was kind of struggling for a direction on something, they would be one of the places that I would go to look and see how they handled it because I respect
yeah.
their creative and their brand, and they're a very sophisticated organization. And I remember working with them on a couple of projects, and they like put us away as far as being organized and knowing what their
Yeah.
goals were and their mission statements. And we were like, oh, we got to go back and figure that out. So yeah, they were great. As far as a consumer brand, yeah, I don't know. There's some new ones that, if you watch the Super Bowl ads,
Mhm.
that I don't know if you saw that AI.com commercial on the Super Bowl. Somebody went out and spent $17 million on the URL AI.com, and I don't know if they knew what they were going to do with it, but they created a commercial for the Super Bowl that was just very nebulous about AI and how, fabulous it is. And so lots of people went to AI.com during the Super Bowl and crashed the website.
No, I didn't know that.
So I don't think that's a good branding story, but
Sure.
it's a memorable one. And then, yeah, I don't really have anybody that I admire tremendously. There are brands that I think are funny and that cut through the clutter.
Sure.
Some of the cell phone. I think T-Mobile is. I continue to watch them as they grow and change, and I think they always have great marketing. Yeah, that's all I can think of, though.
Favorite Super Bowl commercial that you saw?
Oh, well, the number one was the Budweiser with the eagle on the back of the horse. Oh my
Yeah, that one.
God. It was wonderful. And then there's another one that made me cry, actually brought tears to my eyes.
Mhm.
I can't remember what it was right now, but there were some
Yeah.
really good ones. And then, of course, the Ben Affleck one was hysterically funny.
That was interesting to me from like the usage of the AI. Like actually, I was like, wow, this is
Yeah.
weird but interesting and made me laugh.
And memorable, right?
Yep.
But yeah, a lot of celebrity-driven ads. I think they said there were a couple of hundred of celebrities in those ads total. So yeah, it was really interesting. It's fun to watch.
A lot of takeaways from that.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, Sandy, I appreciate all your time. If people want to get in touch with you, work with you, what's the best way to do that?
Just Sandy at cahillconsulting.net. .net. Or just go to the website and you'll find me there.
Okay, very good.
cahillconsulting.net. It's pretty easy. LinkedIn is also easy. I'm on there every day, so easy to find me.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you for this opportunity. It's been fun chatting with you.
100%. Yeah, we'll have to check back in, especially after your World War II trip, because I want to know more about that.
Totally. I'm so excited about that. It's going to be great.
Cool. Well, thanks again, Sandy. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Recruiting Stories podcast. If you haven't yet, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on LinkedIn, Adrian Chapman, and Cover 3 Consulting is our company page. Also check out our website, www.cov3consulting.com. Again, thanks for joining us, and we just simply want to remind you that you can change the world by putting people in a position where they can do the most good, and you do that by recruiting. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.